Welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers, your favorite digital and social evangelist podcast, with your industry veteran hosts, Michael Sandoval and Chris Tetzel. This podcast starts now. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Peers Over Beers. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Sandoval.
And I'm Chris Tetzel.
Hello, Chris. How are you doing?
Not bad. How about you?
Good. So we'll call this the post-election podcast. Right. Yeah. We're recording this like the day after the election, and we had a good, long discussion, regardless of what side you fall on. It's just one thing I am glad is that it's at least over. But now that, I find it funny because now, like, what does one talk about now?
It's not really over. We still are waiting with bated breath to see who actually wins the election. So
I know
it's so close this year.
Yeah, it was really close. Well, that's the thing, as we were talking about earlier, I'm still trying to see if it is close or not. There's still so much vote out that maybe at the end of the day, it's really a lot more vote than we thought. But still, it is annoying. It'd be nice. It would be nice to start the day knowing something. But, well, it is what it is. I'm just trying to get past the fact that I forgot my wallet at home.
Oh, no. That's a terrible. Well, you go into the office. That's one thing that most people aren't doing today, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's the other thing, right? COVID is. So I'm based in El Paso, and that's where COVID seems to be having a really hard time.
I heard there's like 3,000 cases today.
Insane. Yeah, just today, 3,100 or something like that. So it's just pretty. That's just kind of gives you a little kind of step back, So I did some recent traveling. Funny thing, I went to. I was in Seattle this past weekend, and of course, my family gets very concerned about, you got to be careful, the flying. And actually, I found flying very easy. Everybody's just cool.
I find staying in El Paso is the risk, not flying somewhere else.
Honestly, staying in El Paso is a risk. I think I'm going away from risk as opposed to
exactly
risk. That's too funny. But alas, what exciting things have you done this past week, Chris?
Yeah, I've been from a community standpoint, I've been thinking about. I think our last podcast was a little bit about budgeting and things like that, and I'll probably get some of that. And so, really, I'm trying to think about. I'm going to call it a Champions Program. I don't have anything like that, and it's really the start of a Champions Program. Today we have, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 months ago, I started recognizing certain customers and partners on the Imperva community. And the way I did that was I would ask them a bunch of questions, say, hey, would you like to be I used to call it Impervian, but that's something we call it internal. So I just changed the name recently to Champion. And so I just sent them an email and said, hey, I want you to be a champion, and if you fill out these questions, we'll put this cool little write-up about you that says, Chris Detzel, blah, 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 blah. And then I'll write up an entire blog about you as well. And then that makes you a champion. But what I want to do is formalize a program.
What do you get as a champion?
You get a blog write-up.
That's the formalization.
Yeah, and I write up a blog about them, or I get one written up, and then they have this cool little, what do you call it, a little picture of them with a little statement, on the front page of community.imperva.com, and I'll put it there for a month. So I think I've had 7 of them so far. And now I have this little, we just had our first birthday for Imperva community, and I created this page and put this kind of picture of all of our champions that we've had with their quotes of how community helps them, and then put coming soon, more about the Champions Program.
Clever.
And so what I'm thinking about, what I would like to push out in January-ish is an entire program, or at least the start of the entire program. So one, a badging system. So you get a badge for every little. I mean, it's just basic stuff. It's stuff, but that I really haven't
stuff, right?
Haven't really had time to do, or
Have you thought about?
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I mean, I totally interrupted you. So, have you thought about what the names of those levels should be, or because I always thought that was the fun part.
Well, see, as you know from my past experience, that's not really my forte. Um, but I have to do it. And so there's a lot of levels to kind of what I want to do. One is just a badging program that, if you do 15 discussion questions, 5 discussions, or you blog, or you like something, or whatever, all that stuff is you start getting a bunch of badges and things like that, which leads up to these different levels, whatever that means. And so level 1, 2, and 3, and then getting a badge or a ribbon, put on there. And then 3 is so that's 2 parts. And then third part would be, the leaderboard, which gets them points and everything else. And the fourth part could be um, is that you can, we have a swag store, or building out that what a swag store looks like and everything else. And then, you know, then when you get to this certain thing, you can become like, part of a program, a champions program, because you've helped so many people, because you've done this. Now you have special access to, you know, product managers or the directors of technology from the CTO team or whatever, or there's a Slack channel that you now can be a part of because you're helping so many people. But to stay in here, you have to continue helping people. You know what I mean? So then
Yeah, well, that's how you keep your the proverbial points, right?
yeah, um, and so developing that program out, and then because this year was a lot about developing out the webinar program, which that was sort of by accident, but it just took off, and that was one way to really
You mean
engage our customers.
a strategic view you are doing?
I mean, once I found that there was value, I thought there would be, but when we tried it, there was, and customers needed it, and then it just gave me a way to accomplish like 4 or 5 different things at one time. So the webinar program allowed me to do, create video content, create engagement with our customers, create blog content, and Q and A's from all
Yeah.
these webinars. But I need to continue that, but now, one of the problems I would like to solve is, instead of begging people from Imperva experts to answer questions from customers, I need customers to really start doing that. And the way that obviously you do that is through, it's curated or it's content created by your users, right? So that's the key at the end of the day, is to get them to do some of that. I'm not saying that we shouldn't help, kind of say, well, I would do this instead or whatever, and have our experts get on there. But I need to create a program that now really focuses on the customer really helping, because at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do anyways. And then I like the idea of, as I branch out, of something I did at Forrester Research, was kind of these
Mm.
small group studies, right? Your small group peer-to-peer networking type things. You get these kind of people that are maybe focused in on this one area. So it could be the data security area versus application security. And, you don't have to put them by products, but
Mm.
just by kind of areas. And then these 5, 10 people, we
Yeah, kind of
create
like roundtables.
these roundtables, and then we can start creating agendas for them and a bunch of other stuff. That's kind of the future, but
Mm.
because that's really what they want, anyways, is peer-to-peer networking and all that kind of stuff. And how do you do that? Because if you look at Imperfect Community, it started out, it's right now it's a support community, and that's what it's all about. But if we want to move, if we want to move just from kind of these influencers, which they're very much of influencers. They use the products on a daily basis, every day, all day. They have questions about the products and everything else. But if we want to get a higher level, to get to the director of, security, or the CISO or whatever, right? We have to have these higher level conversations, and then, that way it's not always specifically about products and things like that. That's where I see kind of the Imperva community moving towards. It's always going to be a support community, so that in itself. But I also want to think higher level, and having these true networking type things. And then when we have events and things like that, you know, uh, we can have like breakouts or whatever a day before the event. Come for the community event that we're going to have just personalized for you, and we'll have agendas set. We'll have peers talking about case studies and all this kind of cool stuff that I know we can do, and that kind of stuff. Anyways,
And would you do
it's a lot
this
of stuff.
just as you're kind of No. I'm listening to the brainstorm because I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's part of the cool thing about. Do you in that view? Do you see it more as um, a face to face, or is it for when COVID eventually does ends, or is it more of a virtual kind of roundtable thing that you just
Um,
kind of talk
well,
through?
I think you could do virtual roundtables at first, right? Like, so it's fine. But future wise, when COVID's not around, or mostly not around, or whatever you want to call it, um, then there are like Imperva. I know wants to have face to face events. We've been around for 20 years and never had an event or a user event, and so I know over time it's in
Really?
their, yeah, it's crazy, but we now are gonna starting to look at that, and not face to face but more virtual user event, but then eventually they'll move to these face to face. But the other pieces, and to get off a little bit, are user groups. I haven't even thought about that right now because, like, why should I, since there's no face to face, but there's probably opportunity to have these user group. Atlassian does this really cool thing with their community. Is, I mean, they have a lot of people in their community running that, but they own user groups, and then they send out, you know sometimes swag, or they buy them pizza or whatever, and you have people from the community managing these user groups, and getting people together, and I'm not exactly sure how they do it, but over time, 2 years from now, we could have something like that, so there's,
Yeah, they see that as a moment of conversational, like it's a thing to meet. So the face to face becomes of an avenue to meet other
yeah.
people like that.
But I'm sure most of everything that I do for this next year is going to be virtual. Uh, and unless,
Hmm.
at some point, 6, 8, 12 months or 8 months from now, we find a vaccine for COVID, then, you know, why should I mean, maybe I should plan for it in my head and maybe put it on a roadmap 12 months from now. But uh, the face to face is just not. I mean, that's a year problem, I guess. So, and that's the way I'm going to see
Yeah.
it. The way you always say it, that's a 2 year. In this case, it's a year problem, not a 2 year problem, most likely. But something that, well, I'll go solve that in a year, and see where we are at.
Yeah.
But I do think that there's important to face.
Well,
So, but
no. It isn't, and I think there's a little delay in us talking back and forth. But do you? Well, kind of stepping back a little bit. So when you do like virtual events, and let me speak through personal experience, or at least my view, and I'd be curious to see how you've seen it. What I've seen a lot of in the financial industry is there are a lot of third party vendors. That's pretty much how you get anything done in the financial industry. Just you have to work with partners. That's one. Two, as a result, uh, they focus on a lot of outreach to sell their business. Clearly, right? B2B. And part of that outreach is in face to face conferences and the like. Clearly, that's not happening during COVID. So I've been invited to a lot of these virtual conferences, virtual a lot of stuff, and I sign up for them and then I never go.
yeah,
Partly
me too.
because two reasons. No. This is why I'm curious how successful it's been for you. For two reasons. One, um, it'll say like all day. I am not going to be on a meeting all day, so right, that kind of gives me a little pushback. And then two, you you put it as like I'm going to go like 2 weeks ago or whatever, and then all of a sudden the week comes in, and then you decided to start putting in meetings because you needed
You're like, I
something,
don't really
and
go.
then it just drops from the your priority. I've not been able to crack the nut on how to get people to show up in large mass, to some of these things.
I think that one the way so today I just have virtual webinars. So these webinars are generally focused in. I think I've mentioned what they're about, but on a specific topic or product or whatever, and go deeper, and things like that. And those webinars have multi purposes. Um, and those purposes are, one is to create helpful videos for our customers to use their products more. Two is to engage those customers, so have them ask questions, and talk to our experts and those kinds of things. Create blog content and how to content. So that's, and it's been pretty successful, right? Like, so, I'll get, it depends on the topic, but, I generally get about 30 to 40 to 50, depends on the topic, but 30 to 40, 50 people that show up. And that includes our partners and our customers and a few employees that show up, right? So,
Mm,
um,
mm.
generally, there's a good thing for that. Now, when we talk about events, you're right. I get the same issue, right? Like, the CR network put on, this community thing, put on an event, and I actually spoke at one of them, sort of, and Higher Logic is putting on an event. The CMX just put on an event. I guess they're going to do another one. Like, it's nonstop, and I'm sure it is within the cybersecurity space. I'm sure it is with the banking space and financial space and whatever space. Everybody's for free can go to all these conferences, because these companies are trying to, you know, um, get more out of what they can, and so Imperva will do the same thing. We'll have a user event, and it'll be a 2-day event, and they're just gonna be like us, you and me. I mean, some of them will show up and some of them won't, and so uh, just everybody's trying to figure it out, and so everybody's just trying to do it, and so it has settled down one way or another at some point, even if they're virtual events. I mean, it's just a new thing, and everybody wants to make sure they're on top of it and they're being on the forefront of everything, and that
Mm.
that doesn't exclude us. We want to as well. So if you're not the first to do it, if you don't, I mean, try, then then you could be missing out. We're all looking to find dollars
Yeah.
somewhere.
So
Anyways, yeah. Go ahead.
no. No, this is very fascinating. So just to understand logic, it's the idea of yes, it may not be the most efficient tool, but if you don't do it, you'll fall off of the list of. In other words, you have to be front of mind, which I agree. I have no pushback at that on that at all. You have to be very much in consideration. Um, I wonder how to kind of lump this whole virtual meeting trap. And my thought was around webinars. I've attended webinars, which is very fascinating. It's 1 hour of your time, very simple. You listen in, you get the white paper afterwards or whatever. It's informational. They tend to be, even though they're kind of selling their stuff, but they still give a lot of data and information, and it's consumable, right? Easy peasy.
Yeah.
I've done post interaction, so maybe I didn't go to the actual event, like the long 1 hour thing, but I was given access to go to their recorded session,
So you
which I
actually got to do
have,
the recording.
yeah,
Okay.
which I have made use of. I'm just thinking about some things around that, and it's probably why, I mean, because your webinars have done very well,
Yeah.
and it makes sense because that seems like a very digestible.
We got to look at your audience too. Like our people want, or our customers and partners want to know more about the product. It's complex. It's hard to use. So this isn't, hey,
Hmm.
I'm trying to sell you something. I'm just trying to get you to use it better. That's
That's
all
also
I'm trying
true.
to do.
Yeah, that is
Generally,
it's
right? So
very
it's a
much so.
different
Yeah,
mindset than hosting a user event. So when a company hosts a user event like Higher Logic or Imperva or whatever, they're trying to get all their customers to this event so they can do a new product demonstrations, roadmap, and then they want to get customers to do some stuff, and so they're just trying to push out their products, as much as possible. When Higher Logic does it, love Higher Logic, but they have a user conference every year. What's their goal? Is we want you to meet our staff and our people and how we're all about the community management space. And they have
well, that's
people
why
like
you do
me
it. Yeah, because
presenting,
that's
and
part of the value.
I want to present because it helps me to grow, and so not everybody feels that
Hmm.
same way, but so I'm happy to do it and happy to share my experiences,
To see yourself grow.
to see myself grow. Well, it helps me to be able to talk to executives and things like that, and so there are
Yeah,
benefits to
no,
those
I'm being.
conferences, but you're right. So, like, some of these conferences are all day for 3 or 4 days on the, like doing this. And like, I went to a few and I'm like, I'm not going to go to this whole thing. Screw it. I'll just go to the networking thing. But um, some of them are like, I think Higher Logic's doing it within a 2 week span. So it's just kind of on Monday, we'll have this, on Wednesday, we'll have this, and so everybody's trying different formats, a whole entire 2 days or scattered out between 2 weeks. So You have those kind of user events.
Mm.
So yeah, so it is interesting for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So this kind of pull us back into the original discussion, which is around
Yeah,
um, uh, no,
cut
because
me off.
that's how I love how our conversations go. No, no, no. Um, was centered around how you were thinking about
Hmm.
you
New
call them
Year. Yeah,
champion groups, yeah, champions, and the thought process about, hey, kind of migrate into this idea of a user group, and we're just kind of brainstorming off of it, and then from a user group, or correct me if I'm wrong, it maybe went into this idea of virtual roundtables first, then maybe user groups.
yeah,
But I was very curious because I've tried, I've attempted, and I have not been. I will be fully admit I have not been very successful in doing like user groups, and I always thought that would have been like the coolest thing to do. Is like a level to your brand is to say people are so excited about your brand so much that they're willing to take not only their time of the day but to physically go somewhere to meet somebody about
yeah,
your brand, right, and talk about it. So I thought that to me
yeah.
was a very cool
And
thing to do.
I agree, and I'm not saying that I'm putting that together right now, but it is an opportunity in the future on, where does Imperva want to go, with their user group programs and stuff like that. And is that something that it only makes sense that community owns it, but do we want to invest in those kinds of things? Does it work? We know it works,
Mm,
but it's not always about those customers that are all, that are just Imperva kind of champions. That's part of it,
mm,
but it's those people are bringing in their peers from other companies and places, and Imperva's just sponsoring it, and so they could talk about Imperva stuff, but they're talking about other security issues like their security architecture and what that looks like, and how do they get buy-in on other things that they need to buy or do, or how do they get resources, or that's those are the kinds of things that they talk about. Not, well, I was using the damn product of Imperva and did this. I'm not saying that they don't talk about that, but that's probably not going to be the topic that they talk about every time, about a Perma product. It's just not, and just, I mean,
yeah,
nobody, they just, oh, I'm part of this cool community thing from Imperva and they're sponsoring it, la la la, la, and they're off, and so it just,
yeah,
it's all about getting the word out about that Imperva exists and that, they are supporting us and it's kind of a cool place, and that's pretty cool, so I don't know. I mean,
mm,
there's all kinds of ways. It's funny as I kind of think about how people want to engage, and the way people want to engage is different. Some people want to engage online and do forums and things like that. Some people want to get on teleconference or webinars and engage in that way. Some people want to do
yeah,
face to
yeah.
face,
It's a
and I mean,
channel.
it's just another channel, right? That community
Yeah, it's
can
a channel.
bring.
Exactly correct. And the way you optimize that channel.
Yeah, I mean, and it's mind or it's somewhat stressful to think about all those channels and how to get them all to work, you know so
It is
it all
very
goes
stressful.
well, it goes
That's,
all well with
that's
community,
what we
but
do.
I'm just like, there's a lot of ways we can engage our customers, but how do we do one or two things well rather than 10 things and just kind of go here and there and there and there and there. I remember being at Forrester, it was
Yeah,
like,
that's not.
that doesn't work, but it's hard not to
Yeah.
go that way, so
Yes, exactly correct. It's very hard not to go that way because you're trying to get stuff out the door and you want people to come to you.
yeah,
And the more you feel you have a trumpet to talk about it, you feel like you can do it better. But it's still difficult to think through. Like even this idea of a champions group is still, you have to think through what does that mean. And
I
as you
know.
were brainstorming, I know we're coming close to the end. This idea of you were trying to do tiered benefits, like,
Yeah.
well, if they're in this thing, then they have these benefits. If they have this, they have these benefits.
And
Uh,
that's just stressful to think about
it's a
too.
lot to think about, and
It's
it's
like,
not something you do in by yourself in a closed room. You almost have to have a group of
yeah,
people, and especially those who really know the customer. I know you know your customers very well, but there may be some needs that they want access. Like for example, being in at TI, they wanted direct access to the FAE. FAE was a field applications engineer,
yeah,
so they just wanted to directly talk to that. And I say guy because I think it was only maybe one or two FAEs or female. Um, and they just wanted to talk directly to him. because they don't want to talk to the sales guy. They don't want to talk to they just want to talk to the person who knows the product the best, and they want to ask some questions specifically, almost like a tutor. So when you offered that as a benefit, like you get to go talk to this person, they were like, sign me up,
No, it's intriguing, and there's a whole philosophy around gamification and all of those things that it's just it's like you have to be an expert just in those kinds of programs to really do amazingly well. I mean, I get the gist of it, I understand it ish, but there's a whole philosophy around it. People get degrees in this shit. You know what I mean? And so it's like, okay,
white papers, the professors, gamification, which I find fascinating.
Yeah, I mean, I know it works, and I've got to do it, but I'll just implement things slowly, to see what I can do. Even the badging kind of stresses me out. I'm like, okay, create a badge for 5 discussions and 15 discussions and this, and then launch it here. But then, then what is next? But it all kind of comes together. And so I'm pushing myself hard to do that. At the end of the day, I've seen others do it at the beginning of the community, when they start their community, probably the better approach, but
it's just a lot to think about.
Yeah, it's tough. So, but yeah, that's what I'm working on.
Yeah. Well, Chris, once again, we're able to chit chat through another podcast.
Yeah.
No, actually, I love talking through this. To be very frank, I find this all very fascinating, and I thank you for sharing as always.
Of course. Well, thanks, Michael.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Thank you very much. Nice talking to you. This is Michael Sandoval.
Yeah, and I'm Chris Detzel.
All right. Thank you guys very much. Have a good afternoon.
All right. Bye-bye.